What's up guys, welcome back to my channel, another episode of Let's Begin. This will probably be the final episode of this series and we'll move on to a next one. Today we are covering capital gains tax. I know it's a pretty annoying, it's a pretty boring subject, but we all have to pay tax at the end of the day. I'm covering this capital gains tax in relation to Ireland, as the people of Ireland have asked me to do an episode about capital gains tax. Now me myself trying to find out information about capital gains tax in Ireland. As you know, I don't know all the answers, I'll figure out myself. There is not a lot of information out there, so I did have to pull teeth trying to get a lot of information for you guys. So hopefully I can make sense to it for you at home and it won't be a burden for when you're paying your taxes. Before we get into capital gains tax, I want to talk about one or two points in relation to my last video. Now a lot has happened since my last video in relation to the stocks that are available on Revolut. Jevin asked an important question in relation to Cosmos Energy. So Revolut has disbanded about 30 companies from their portfolio, including Cosmos Energy, the one I had shares in. Now why did Revolut do this? So Revolut uses a third-party brokerage called DriveWealth. So DriveWealth have done this because they've seen these companies as risky companies, and DriveWealth wanted to protect the funds of their clients. So if an institutional investor such as DriveWealth finds Cosmos Energy as a risky company, you need to take that into consideration. Now a lot of companies in the oil sector have been hit hard. Cheap Speak Energy, a big oil company, was right around over $100 a share before February, have now declared bankruptcy. Now Cosmos Energy have put out articles in relation to how they are managing during these times, but I just don't feel it's actually going to be enough. The news about a second wave coming just overrides all that technical analysis. So with me personally, I will be selling Cosmos Energy later on in this week. It's just too volatile at the moment for me to say what's going to happen. It's better for me just to take profit now and then hold that cash until better times. So for the people who have shares in the companies that have been disbanded, you can hold on to them for as long as you want and then sell them. But for the people who don't have shares in these companies, they cannot buy these 30 companies on Revolut anymore. So thanks Jevin for that important question. Moving on to capital gains tax. So what is capital gains tax? So capital gains tax is tax you pay on any profit you make when selling an asset. So we'll underline the word profit. So what is considered an asset? So an asset is shares in a company, bonds, land. If you're selling a house or apartment, so these are all things that you have to pay capital gains tax on. So the profit you make from these items, you can be taxed on. So capital gains tax in Ireland is a tax at a standard rate of 33%. The Now it's completely different in relation to the US. The US can be taxed on short-term and long-term tax brackets. So we won't get into that too much because I don't want to confuse anybody. So yes, I did say 33%. It is really high, but we do have a few things going for us. I'll explain them now. So the first thing we have going for us is called a personal exemption. Now, we all have a personal exemption to capital gains tax. So this is the first €1,270 that you make cannot be taxed. So if you make a profit under €1,270, you do not have to pay capital gains tax. So if you're a small investor and you don't make over €1,270 profit, you do not have to pay capital gains tax. So that's not too bad. That's good for the small investors. Another thing going for us is the losses you make when investing. So if you make a loss when buying and selling your shares, so if you bought shares for a high price and sold them for a cheaper price and you lost, the money you have lost can be written off against the profit you made throughout that year. So you add up your gains, you add up your losses, you can take your losses from the gains. Another thing, if you don't want to go through the whole process of filing your own tax returns, you can use an outside company such as taxback.com. Now they offer to help you file a return in relation to capital gains tax. Now they do other things, but they do capital gains tax returns also. The fee is €75. Now I've emailed them and I asked them, can we write off that €75 against our tax? And they have said, well, they didn't email back yet, so I'm still waiting for a good reply. So there are the 3 or 4 things that are going for us in relation to capital gains tax. Now before we get into when to pay your capital gains tax and how to pay your capital gains tax, I'll do a little example with you just to get your minds wrapped around, because it's a lot of information. So we'll get into this example now. So say we bought €2,000 worth of shares in the stock. We waited a couple of months and now them shares are now worth €10,000. So we want to cash out. What's the profit that we made there? So the profit we made there is €8,000. So that is the chargeable gain. So this is what we have to pay capital gains tax on. The sale price was €10,000. Now we deduct the allowable expenses, which are the cost of the shares, which is €2,000. So the sale price minus the cost of the shares is €8,000, which is the chargeable gain. Now, as we discussed before, we now have to take away our personal exemption and any losses that we've occurred during that year. So we deduct the personal exemption of €1,270, and for argument's sake, a loss of €830 in that year. So minus them two figures from the €8,000 gives you €5,900. So this is now the taxable gain. So this is the complete figure of what we have to pay capital gains tax on. As we said at the beginning, capital gains tax is taxed at 33%. So 33% of €5,900 gives you a figure of €1,947. So this figure is the capital gains tax. So we owe €1,947 from a €10,000 sale. Now, how do you pay your capital gains tax? So like I said at the start of the video, you can use a different company called taxback.com. You give all your information, they'll give you forms to fill in and they'll do it for you. Or you can do it yourself. So to do it yourself, you first have to register for capital gains tax. Now this is all done on revenue.ie. To register for capital gains tax, you must send an inquiry to revenue.ie. So you log on to revenue.ie, you go into my inquiries, and you say, I want to register for capital gains tax. Now it takes 1 or 2 weeks for them to register you for capital gains tax. Now once you're registered for capital gains tax, so you go into my account, go down to manage my record, go into registrations, and then follow the prompt for capital gains tax. It gives you all the step-by-step of how to pay and file your capital gains tax. So moving on to when do you pay your capital gains tax. Now there's certain dates that you pay your capital gains tax and there are certain dates that you file a tax return. To make it clear, you pay your capital gains tax before you file the capital gains tax return. Payments are divided into 2 different periods. So the initial period and the later period. So the initial period. So if you sell an asset between the 1st of January and the 30th of November, the 11th month, you must pay your capital gains tax by the 15th of December on the same year. Now the later period, which is the 1st of December to the 31st of December, if you sell your assets in between them dates, you must pay your capital gains tax by the 31st of January of the next year. So little over a month. So basically you have 1 month to pay after that period ends. So when do you file a capital gains tax return? After you paid your capital gains tax, the next year, by the 31st of October, you have to file a return. The losses you made, the gains you made. It's basically the explanation of why you paid that capital gains tax. So when you're filing for a capital gains tax return, you use a CG1, a capital gains 1 form. Now you can find all these forms on revenue.ie. Just to recap, you pay your capital gains tax the same year, you file the return the following year. So you pay the fee, and then the following year you explain why you've paid that amount. Now that is a lot of information to take in. Don't be afraid to ask me questions. I hope I made it a little more easier for the people of Ireland in relation to paying your capital gains tax. I know there wasn't a lot of information out there on how to do this. I'm happy to see our discussion group Revolut Trading Our Journey progressing and growing. So it's good to see that. If you think this video helped you out any bit at all, don't be afraid to like and subscribe. It'll help me out immensely. So with that said, I will see you in the next one.